Hi guys, my name is Cameron. Some of you I know, some not, so welcome. The poems that I'm going to read today are mostly recent and belong to a certain project that I'm engaged in writing my diagnosis and disability and the experiences that have accompanied it. The first poem that I want to read is a sort of self-portrait that indulges in the fantasy that I wasn't a bald guy before chemotherapy. So, it's called Beyond the Shadow. Chemo bald as a light bulb, the dent in my head, a dark ravine, a valley of a shadow. I trace the incision with my fingertips, unable to recollect the drill, twirling a hole into my skull. The stereotactic needle piercing my right hemisphere. The anesthetic took me quick. Counting down from 10, I slurred 7. Before the results came back from Nebraska, twice checked, just in time for the appointment. My tumor might have been benign, as they say, or slow growing, inching like lichen. I might have continued to saunter, soaking up the sunlight, the squirrels and the gumballs along Gulfview Drive, playing board games with my little brother, making love to my wife, which is not to say I have forsaken my place in the light of this world, but I have learned more fully what it means to abide. The next poem I'm going to read is called Poe Poem. This is one that I wrote last year in Hadara Barnadov's poetry workshop on research. So I also just want to say, as an aside, it's really humbling to be introduced by one's teacher. So thank you for doing this. It's called Poe Poem. So Edgar Allan Poe, of course, is the reference. Because of the mask that molded to my face during the fitting, hardening as the warm water dried, the mask that fastened my head to the cot, and because of the cot that carried me into the machine, the beam that unloaded a single dose of radiation every morning, Monday through Friday, and because the techs left me alone in there to take my dose, closing the steel door behind them, while the robot arm rotated around my head, firing invisible shots of radiation. I wrote no poems. I had no thoughts. The radiologist said I would be dead within 2 years. Ravens decorated the ceiling panels. I read The Red Mask of Death on rides to the Department of Radiology, pulling down my stocking cap over my ears. I shaved my head, grew out my beard. For the first time in my life, I insisted on carving jack-o'-lanterns, clawing out the cold slime of their brains with my fingernails. This poem accompanies the last. It focuses a little bit more keenly on the experience of having one's face fitted for the sort of mask that you have to wear when you're undergoing radiation. It's called The Mask. On my first visit to the Department of Radiology, Lady Sky slipped a sheet of plastic into her stainless steel basin, and I closed my eyes while she draped its wet weave over my face, its limp lattice work adhering to my cheeks. I lay upon her table, like a corpse getting dressed in the back room of a funeral parlor. She smoothed out the wrinkles in my skin. Her cool fingers traced the contours of my eyelids, molding a face out of warm water. All right, I'll finish, she said, peeling off the hardened semblance of myself, a cere cloth full of breathing holes, a porous membrane still dripping. Later, the mask bolted my head to the cot, clutching my skull, while the machine arm swiveled around in its shop, bolting the loud, invisible beams into my brain. That was kind of a heavy note, so this poem is a little lighter. I always feel like there's something really special about the relationship that I have or imagine I have with the people who take my blood. It's kind of weird, but it's very intimate in a way, going into a back room with someone that you don't know, and then they stick you with a needle. So this one is called the Phlebotomist, and this one is a woman, the next one will be a man. Don't look, she says, as the butterfly needle slips into the crook of my arm, but I can't help it. I can't help but watch the silver proboscis pierce the bruise of weekly blood draws, the blue blossom of scar tissue, nor how she hovers above me like a seamstress searching for a seam, threading herself into my bloodstream. Don't look, she says. What she means is, if you flinch, I might miss, I might slip, I might kiss you by accident. This one is the man, his name is Jeff. It's called Astrocytoma. Anybody have any inkling about what that means? The brain contains a number of cells. Glial cells, or astro cells, are the star-shaped cells in the brain that constitute its infrastructure, like the stuff that the neurons use to convey messages. So astro, it comes from the word star. Astrocytoma. Jeff, a former Navy man, rides a butterfly needle into my vein. The line leaps with my red river of platelets, lymphocytes, white blood cells. How long does it take to become a phlebotomist? He shakes the vial, a cocktail of yellow gunk and blood. His arm, a blurred mermaid, mine, a bruised creek. Scar tissue still dark from last Tuesday. About 8 weeks, I guess. It took me 10 years, I'm told, to grow my astrocytoma as big as a golf ball. On night watch, he says, I used to drive golf balls off the edge of the USS Gerald R. Ford, satellites arcing through the stars. I don't know how many more to do. I have a couple more that I want to get to. So this one is also from the research class with Hadara, and it doesn't derive from Edgar Allan Poe. It derives from a quote out of Percy Shelley's essay, Defense of Poesy, which is, poetry is a record of the best and happiest moments of the happiest and best minds. Percy Bysshe Shelley.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
The best and happiest moments is the name of the poem. Midnights when my mattress drifts and the grandfather clock tolls out of its oaken hollow, I call you Nightingale, you who sat in the dark and sang, died at 29, and here I am at the same age, reading your defense, defenseless. In my 3rd October since diagnosis, I have followed every recommendation from chemo to radio beams, but still feel my footsteps like those of a wind over the sea. The Gulf of Lespesia, perhaps, or the gulf between us, between drowning, swallowed in seaweed, and taking Temodar. Still, I too have lived by the sea. I have seen linen clouds billowing on the clothesline. I have smelt the salt sea air. I too have made recordings. All right, this next one I want to read is the second to last one I want to read. It's these are very recent poems. I think I wrote this one on March 31st, so it's about kind of my neighborhood, very local poem. It's called Smoking in the Rain. A man loiters in the alleyway between CVS and Walmart, smoking in the rain. Packing tape dangles from a bird's nest, couched in the crook of a cherry tree. White blossoms float in a brown puddle, navigating the litter of receipts and waterlogged cigarette butts. Faint cloud light and meat blocker wind are all that stands between me and the sliding doors of my 30th year on this earth, the last day of March. Before the cancer, I never felt cause to celebrate birth, death, the whole shebang. But now to swipe my EBT card for a bag of Idaho gold potatoes is about as much as I can take. The American flag draped over my checkout lane like a soldier's coffin. So yeah, shopping for groceries, delightful experience in the neighborhood Walmart. Okay, this last poem brings in a different medical sphere. My wife and I have been visiting our doctor a lot recently because she's 12 weeks pregnant. So this one is called Ultrasound. Week 10. You shimmer at the bottom of a well, little light caught on the crest of dark water, rocking. You rock as she walks, your mother as she reclines, yoga pants pulled below her pubic bone, black tuft peeking above her waistline, unfolds her driving and movie-going glasses and peers with me at the exam room screen. The stirrups of a mid-mark 623 hold her feet, her knees apart. Lady Tech's transducer sleds through water-soluble gel, its nose irradiating inaudible sound waves like a dolphin, until, is it just me, or is that you kicking your legs, your leg buds, your heartbeat, a thunder too faint for my ears, flickers on the far horizon.